Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam Levine, and I am Executive Director here at the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, or NYMTC. As the Downstate New York Region's Metropolitan Planning Organization, NYMTC provides a collaborative planning forum to address transportation-related issues and develop regional plans through our members' shared vision for the transportation network that connects New York City, Long Island, and the Lower Hudson Valley. Thank you all for participating in today's Brown Bag event. Please note that this webinar is eligible for one certification maintenance credit and one sustainability and resilience credit from the American Planning Association. You will find more information about this in the chat. Today we have a presentation led by Patty Bourne, who is the City of Long Beach's first ever Director of Economic Development and Planning. The position was created to help the city recover after Superstorm Sandy in 2012. Recently, Patty oversaw the adoption of the city's 2023 comprehensive plan and currently manages Long Beach's Community Development Office. She has previously led numerous downtown revitalization projects in Nassau and Suffolk County and has helped secure over $25 million for parking and traffic studies in 3 downtown areas of Long Beach. Patty is joined by Scott Solomon, a planner in Long Beach's Department of Economic Development and Planning, and Michael Robinson, the City of Long Beach's Director of Fleet Management. We are pleased to also be joined by the City of Long Beach's City Manager, Dan Creighton, who will give some brief introductory remarks. There will be an opportunity for questions following the presentation, so please type your questions into the WebEx chat box, and we will address them during the question and answer portion towards the end of today's presentation. I also ask that you let us know via the chat who you are and where you're joining from. This helps us learn more about our audience so we can plan for future Brown Bag events. Lastly, please mark your calendar for our next event in a few weeks. On Wednesday, December 4th, New York City DOT will share their recently launched mobility dashboard. Information about the next Brown Bag is available on NYMTC's website, nymtec.org. Thank you again for joining us today, and I will now turn it over to Dan Creighton to start today's presentation. Dan?
All right. So I want to thank everybody, especially NYMTC and its staff, for allowing us to speak today. NYMTC works very hard to manage the transportation resource in our area and provide the technical and procedural support that we all very much need. Originally, I wasn't prepared to make it today, but I was able to free up some time, so I wanted to come in just to offer some brief remarks before Patty started her presentation. This is really her presentation, so I don't want to take too much of everybody's time. So I'll just kick off the first few slides. I'll hand it over to Patty when I'm done. She's our Director of Economic Development. We also have Michael Robinson, our Director of Fleet Management, and Scott Solomon, who's our City Planner. So going on to the next slide, for those who are unfamiliar with Long Beach, we're a barrier island on the south shore of Long Island. We're just about 3 miles long, bit over 3/4 of a mile wide at its widest point. On our west end, we're only 2 blocks wide. So it's a very small area for a very large population. Our total land area is only about 3.5 square miles. We have about 35,000 residents. We're probably one of the densest communities, if not the densest community on Long Island, and we're the 34th most densely populated community in the U.S. So to go, to the next slide. While the beach is obviously our main draw, we have 3 thriving business districts. We have one on the west end, which is very, very popular. It has most of our bars and restaurants. It's really the area that gets the busiest in the summer. We're also one of the most walkable and bikeable communities on Long Island, and we also have our own transportation system. We have our own bus system, and we're lucky enough to also have Long Island Railroad terminating in Long Beach, a few blocks from the beach. That being said, we're also a victim of our own success. We've grown significantly, especially since Sandy. And while all the things I mentioned are great, we're an automobile-dependent community, and it becomes a huge issue when we don't have parking for both ourselves and our visitors alike, especially when we're trying to help our businesses thrive. It becomes very difficult when there's not enough parking for even the residents that are here. So through the assistance of a few grants that we've been working on, a few studies, we've started traffic safety management and parking management. Significant progress has been made, but we still have a long way to go. So the focus of this, to go on to the next slide, the focus of this presentation is really on resiliency and lessons learned. So looking back, a bit since October of 2012, Long Beach was hammered hammered, substantially hammered during Superstorm Sandy. If anybody knows Long Beach, we're between the bay and the ocean. There was no difference between the bay and the ocean on Superstorm Sandy. The bay touched the ocean touched the bay. There was water straight through. You just saw buildings popping out of the water. Our dune system completely failed. The beach failed. It was over $250 million in damage just in Long Beach alone. So that being said, 12 years later, we're still recovering, but the community is built back. We're focusing all of our efforts on resiliency. We built a new dune system, a new boardwalk system. On our bay side, we put in new bulkheads. Most of the areas of the city are already covered with new bulkheads, and the resiliency is really making substantial advances. That being said, we still have some private residences that need to, meet the same level of expectations as we have in the city. But we're doing everything we can to make sure we're better prepared for the next storm that hits. Hopefully it doesn't hit, but if it does, we'll be prepared for it. So like I said, with that said, this is really Patty's presentation. I'd like to turn it over to Patty. She'll go through the origin of the city, where we stand today, and what sort of things we're looking to do in the future to really help out. So I'd like to thank everybody from NYMTC for this opportunity, and everyone who's joined the call, and to learn about our experiences, and hopefully it's something that will be helpful to everybody. Thank you very much. And Patty, I'll turn it over to you. Patty, I think you're muted still.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you, Dan, for your remarks. Before I go on, I want to say that we have had Dan as our city manager since January. Many of you may know him from his prior positions. He had senior level positions at both the MTA and the FTA. He has also served, not any longer, of course, on the City Zoning Board of Appeals for about 6 years. So that gives Dan, I think, a unique background in both transportation and planning, which, as I know, is an important theme of everything that we do, to be able to work those two major systems together. And I want to thank everybody else from Long Beach, Mike and Scott, who are on the call as well. And I think we, as a group, it would be much enriched by having all of us together. So before I talk specifically on this slide, I also want to mention that, and thanks to the NYMTC team, especially Maura, for pointing this out. We have several projects that have been accomplished due to the help and guidance and oversight of NYMTC, because these projects have gone through the NYMTC review process, which includes a project we completed a couple years ago called the Edwards Boulevard Improvement Project, which was funded with DOT, New York State DOT, federal DOT, TAP funds. And this project had two significant elements. One, it was a total redevelopment of the road. It was the inclusion of a bike lane system, and it included flood mitigation, which is an illustration of our priority in the city since Sandy, which occurred in 2012, so over 11 years ago, to make sure any major road development projects, any major projects have a flood mitigation piece of it, because we need to do everything possible, not only to take care of current conditions, but to be prepared for the future with climate change. The next project, and I'll go into more detail later on, is the FTA funding for the city's bus system. In fact, on that one, Mike will talk more about. He's our expert there. And we have the Bayfront Infrastructure Project, which is protecting the North Shore of Long Beach with bulkheading and a pump station. Very, very significant project, which is very complex and has taken many years to accomplish and is really on its way. And the last but not least is the Bayfront Conveyance Project, which is a partnership with Nassau County to provide a better avenue for the delivery of the effluent and moving it out of the Bay system. So now on to the slides. Sorry for that introduction. Transportation is a very important part. Transportation is a very important part of Long Beach since its inception. The city was originally wetlands, similar to Jones Beach, and the original developer decided to build a 5,000 room wooden structure hotel, the largest at the time for tourism in the world, we are told. So that was a major development. To get there, the developers formed a syndicate with the Long Island Railroad. This is back in the 1880s. And the railroad, I don't know how they did it, but they moved across these 7 islands and onto the ocean front, very close to the water, to allow the people coming to the hotel to then move from the train to carriages right up to the hotel. Unfortunately, that hotel burnt, a wooden building that's so big. And after that, Senator Reynolds came in and he developed a series of hotels along the boardwalk, which he created as well. And the train station was moved back to, on the right bottom picture, the current location right on Park Avenue, further to the north, which allowed the train tracks not to have to cross Park Avenue, our major street. If you looked at original pictures of the boardwalk, they were elephants, kind of a Barnum and Bailey idea of the elephants building the boardwalk. No, they did not build the boardwalk, but it was certainly great for marketing at the time. And the boardwalk lasted up until Sandy. The Senator Reynolds also decided to take the 7 islands of Long Beach and combine them into the city we have today, to the physical structure. He did that by dredging the bayfront, which also provided a navigable lane channel for boating and later on for different kind of freight uses. And I have to tell my joke, which is he went up 9 feet, we are told, of sand onto Long Beach. If he had gone 12 or 14 feet, we probably wouldn't have the kinds of flooding problems of today. But of course, he was far thinker because this was over 100 years ago. We are now about 35,000 people, according to the census, but it doubles in population during the summer. We get both people who come for the summer, people that own homes here, rent, and we get people that come for the day attracted by our amazing beaches. We can go on to the next slide. So this slide, and I forgot to thank Scott for putting this PowerPoint together for us. I think these slides really speak for themselves. The bottom slide shows what happened, how the city was flooded during Sandy. We are at risk. We are the entire island and the entire city, surrounded by the bay on the north and the ocean on the south, is in a flood area, according to FEMA. It's mandatory to have flood insurance. Many people, probably half of the homes had to be raised after Sandy because they had so much damage. And in order to get insurance, in order to get a mortgage, you have to meet, obviously, FEMA standards. So we take all of this very, very seriously. As Dan said, we are affected from the bay to the ocean. During high tide and full moons, if there's any kind of rain event like last night, we have to be on the lookout because it's enough to cause a flooding. It's much better than it used to be because in the last 11 years, we've been able to put in a lot of improvements, which has minimized flooding, but it's still here. The island is sinking to a certain extent. The water level is rising. So we have to think of the future and what we can do to mitigate flooding problems. And people here realize that, if a rain event's coming, they might move their car if it's in a low-lying area, or think about their route to get to where they need to go, the supermarket or a school to pick up their child. So it's something of an everyday occurrence, and people have a lot of cars that are higher because of it too. So we can go on to the next slide. I should mention as we move on that one thing before Scott takes over, we're very proud of is that FEMA has, if you don't know, a community rating system. And we're at level 7. We started at 10. The further down you go, the better you are. And not only does that provide a 15% at level 7 reduction in flood insurance for all our residents and businesses, but it causes us to focus from a planning perspective on what we can do to make things better. We have a flood mitigation plan, and we have consultants, and we do quarterly reports to FEMA. And that project, it not only includes city residents and our businesses, but of course, City Hall, individual staff, we all get together and plan out. We have public meetings and have, I think it's well over 100 tasks, but it's a very large, complicated report that is updated quarterly, as I said, to see everything that we can do and accomplish to get our achievements, to maintain our level at 7 and do better. I think we're, if not the lowest level, which is a good thing, or one of the lowest level communities on Long Island. And you can understand why that is a motivation for us to do as best as we can. And now I'd like to turn this over to Scott.
Great, thank you. So it does look like when I shared my screen, it disabled my ability to share my video myself here. I don't think it's letting me do two things at once.
That's okay, Scott, no worries.
Yeah, I think we're looking at the screen, not myself. I'll pop up later. But thanks, Patty, for the intro. So I just wanted to show a brief snapshot here to highlight how the diverse land use landscape really serves as a strong asset in Long Beach's effort to be a sustainable, resilient city. So looking to the city today, sky view here, basically, approximately 48% of the total land is occupied by residential buildings. And of those, approximately 60% are single family, 11% are what we would categorize as higher density. Many of these highest density buildings are located along the boardwalk, which much of this density was established by those many hotels that were converted years ago. And what may fall within that missing middle density, mostly 2 to 3 family homes, this represents another 28% of the housing stock. So Long Beach has a much more diverse housing stock comparatively to other municipalities, hamlets on Long Island. So Long Beach has this long history of providing more housing opportunities than other communities as well. And we have several established vibrant commercial corridors along major thoroughfares. Development pattern on the west and West End, I should say, originated from seasonal bungalows that are now predominantly year-round homes. But it's still relatively dense with higher density buildings on the oceanfront streets and more sprawling as you head eastward. This land use pattern also presents some challenges because it is compact. There's less room for open space opportunities. There's also access issues to small, narrow lots can present challenges for services like waste removal and management. The Bayfront also presents challenges and opportunities, which has been historically industrial. The industrial zoning, it's essentially a product of its time. While we still have some light to heavy industrial uses, its footprint has decreased over time. So North Park, this community proximate to these industrial uses, shown in purple, we have historically identified it as an environmental justice community because of its proximity to these uses, which also includes our sewage treatment plant in quite close proximity. Patty's talked more about that already and in future later on, but Long Beach is in the process of diverting wastewater further to Bay Park off of Long Beach. And this transition provides an opportunity to increase the quality of life for this vulnerable community, but also provide opportunities for new resources for this community. This diverse land use patterns also exemplify efficient city planning compared to more sprawling areas of Long Island. So by concentrating development near transit, recreational, commercial centers, Long Beach reduces the need for extensive car travel, lowering carbon emissions, traffic congestion. This enhances quality of life, strengthens the local economy, and fosters a sense of community. And this compact design also minimizes infrastructure costs, making more efficient use of resources like water, electricity, providing of services. So in contrast, sprawling developments often require longer commutes, increased infrastructure investment, higher energy consumption, leading to greater environmental impact and reduced quality of life. Long Beach's model demonstrates how smart land use can create more sustainable and livable communities. As Patty alluded to, the comprehensive plan adopted in 2023 identified potential strategies to utilize our zoning, mostly unchanged since the 1980s, to accommodate changing conditions, including resiliency needs. So that plan identifies the need for zoning to be consistent with the existing development patterns and neighborhood character, which has been well established and really appreciated by the community, but to also consider innovative zoning approaches to ensure future development is balanced with resiliency initiatives like transit-oriented development and mixed-use development. And then moving on to some of the city's road and bicycle network, setting this up for Michael, who's going to follow regarding the bus transit. But Long Beach is still primarily an auto-dependent area for both intracity travel and beyond. The reliance on cars contributes to a continuing struggle also to address parking congestion in the city. A planned city, again, as Patty discussed, because of William Reynolds' initiatives and investment, produced a traditional grid pattern with wide boulevards, narrow side streets. This provides ease of travel, but also challenges, including the prevalence of through traffic for the communities to the east and west. We obviously also have a very strong beach culture, and this network facilitates access to the beach, with residents and visitors attracted to the boardwalk, an asset we deeply take pride in, which serves as a popular pedestrian and bicycling destination, not just for recreational purposes, but also as a functional travel corridor. We continue to make significant road improvements as we invest in phased improvements along Park Avenue, the primary thoroughfare, east-west thoroughfare for the city. These improvements prioritized sustainable and resilient infrastructure and made pedestrian and cyclist safety and accessibility improvements. And in an effort to be proactive against future flooding that Patty painted so clearly, that was experienced during Sandy, the city committed to make improvements to the city's infrastructure, including the road network that incorporates strong flood mitigation measures, and we implement this commitment through a capital budgeting process. The city has been able to utilize supplemental state and federal funds for such improvements, and hundreds of millions of dollars have been invested on rebuilding our road network, utilizing resilient strategies like improved permeability, street tree plantings. And the city's surface bus system is reliant on this network to keep people moving safely and efficiently. And with that, I want to pass it on to Michael Robinson, again, Long Beach's Director of Fleet Management, and he's provides some of his expertise on our public transit access assets.
Hello, and thank you for having me. As mentioned before, the City of Long Beach operates its own public transit system with a fixed route and paratransit. We are a direct recipient of Federal Transit Administration funds, the FTA. It's an 80-20 split, with the FTA covering 80% of the cost, the state picking up 10, and the city responsible for 10%. We currently operate outside the city limits. We have a contract with Nassau County for the communities of Lido Beach and Point Lookout. During Hurricane Sandy, the city's maintenance facility and bus storage facility is in a low area of the city and had severe flooding, up to 6 feet of water through the facility. We did lose some buses at that time. We are looking to go to a all-electric bus fleet. With that, though, the facility will have to be either redone where it currently is or moved. That is what we're looking to do moving forward. We will be securing a grant in the amount of $700,000 to look at city properties, also to look at the current layout of the system, or park and ride lots, and the double-decker parking garage and bus depot that connects to the Long Island Railroad. At the same time, we'll be looking to put in electric charging stations for vehicles at our parking lots, and also making it more easier for people to park their vehicle, get on the bus, take it to the station, and from there, go into Manhattan. You get to all the major airports from the Long Island Railroad. With that, we also be looking to put in bike lockers. As was mentioned before, Long Beach is a very bikeable community, and having a place where you can secure your bike, leave it for the day, seems to be working in other locations, and it's something we'd like to do here. Other than that, we feel that the ridership has increased, as you can see across the nation, especially after COVID. There was a little drop. We're heading back up, and with that tick. So with that, we want to make sure that we have a fleet that is ready to serve the public. With that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mike has an extensive background working for the city, so he adds a lot of value to our system, and he's a very good grants person, which is very important for us, which is segue into the next slide. Grants have always been important here since I've been here, and certainly under our current administration, under Dan as our city manager, because grants help you achieve your goals because none of us want to see plans or goals sitting on a shelf. That's typical cliche about planning. You want to implement them. So I thought this is important ever since I've started working. It was clear to me, find money if you want to do your projects. When we did the comprehensive plan, as Scott was talking about, we did a survey and found that the reason, the most important reason why people came to Long Beach, lived in Long Beach, was the beach. That makes a lot of sense. And we are a unique community. As I talked about before, we started from an economic perspective with the visitors coming to the hotels that started Long Beach off. And our small businesses are very important to us, as well as the beach, which draws so many people, especially in the summer. The biggest issue, as Dan mentioned earlier, is in terms of the comprehensive plan for people is parking. We are working in many directions to alleviate the problem, but it is a challenge here given the density and limited parking availability. Now on to the points on this slide. We're really very excited and proud of what's been accomplished about since Sandy. And you probably think, why does this woman keep talking about Sandy? I would say Superstorm Sandy. I came to work here right after that, but from what people tell me, because that was the biggest storm they had ever had here and had the most damage, as Dan was talking about, that it was a change moment in the existence of the city. Some people are still working to come back. The city still has a lot of projects we're looking to accomplish and achieve because of that storm, and it set us on a different course of putting resiliency as a major factor in everything we do. And it started from the lessons learned from Sandy. So since that time, we have gotten grants and spent the money, about $250 million, 250, $250 million. It's a lot to process, it's a lot to administer, and it's a lot of projects, but as we know, projects are expensive. And from the beginning, we said that we wanted to not just build, but build back better so that we were resilient for the future. So boardwalk reconstruction was completed in 2013, right after Sandy, because that's an economic draw as well as a mainstay, the focus, the center of the culture of the city. That's where people go. That's why most people live here. And it was totally destroyed. And thanks to FEMA and our senators and the governor at the time, that was totally paid for on behalf of the city. That was about a $30 million project. So after that, we got involved in the jetty and dune reconstruction. The Army Corps of Engineers spent, well, it's over $200 million, but that's for the whole Barrier Island, the sections they did. But they rebuilt the jetties, most of the jetties, not all. We still have some jetties to have rebuilt. But what they did was create a dune structure. They raised the sand 17 feet to match the boardwalk. So that added another layer of protection for any future storms, because of the energy from a storm collapsed the last boardwalk for the first time that had been there since the 30s. So we have built the boardwalk to withstand storms, and then the Army Corps of Engineers putting on the sand with dunes on top, planted with grass that are maintaining the dunes. That is a way of protecting us for the future, the entire city on our South Shore. It also had to change all the ramps and the access to the sand. It was a major, major project, still is, but it really is so important to us. The updates to roads and utilities, obviously, because of the storm, things afterwards. We've had to replace a lot of roads and the utility lines. We work very closely with the utilities in the area, the private utilities, who have had to do a lot of work here, National Grid and PSEG. Resilient housing production, as I said before, so many people had to raise their homes, and they were required to. And it added and created some other interesting interactions, because now homes, it's like Jane Jacobs said in her famous books, that eyes on the street. Well, all of a sudden, people's eyes who were on the first level, they're now on the second level. So it created a distance between people walking around the neighborhoods, like in the West End or the canals, and people who were above them. And how do you use that lower level, which couldn't be used for housing anymore, but could be used for storage or for parking? But it didn't increase necessarily parking in the areas because people still parked on the street. We have challenging parking issues. Bulkhead replacement along the bayfront, that's an ongoing project right now, and that is being done through state and federal funding. And it's going to include, when it's done, the bulkheading the entire middle section of the city from the recreation center on Magnolia all the way to and actually past Long Beach Road and the bridge there, which will provide major protection because the bay is actually higher, the water is actually higher on the bay side than it is on the ocean. So it's always been a serious issue of flooding. And it also includes a large pump station, very large. I mean, it's like almost the size of a house that's going to run 24/7 to protect the area. The city's sewage treatment plant. Well, sewage and the treatment of it, the expectation from the federal government to the state government to local providers, such as the city of Long Beach, has increased because the level of intensive cleaning of the sewerage, the treatment of the sewage has been greater. So it becomes a really big cost to the city, and new requirements have come out recently. At the same time, the county has a plant in Bay Park, which is west and north of us across the Western Bays and Reynolds Channel. And the everyone working together came up with an amazing plan funded by FEMA, thank goodness, to move our water through converting our sewage treatment plant into a pump station. And the water will then be pumped over to the Bay Park facility that the county owns. And then the county will then pump it out to Cedar Creek, their other facility, and then pumped out after it's cleaned, very cleaned. The effluent will be pumped out to the ocean. So not only does that get us out of the sewage treatment business, which is one less thing for us to work on, but it improves the bay, because now neither the county nor the city will be letting the effluent, the treated effluent, go into the bay. Therefore, the expectation it will be cleaned up. In the past, decades ago, many people preferred to swim on the bay side rather than the ocean side because it was quieter. And now we could think towards the future of people being able to swim again in the bay. Certainly, any water-dependent uses will increase, such as paddle and boating, and we hope to see the wetlands increase. We had major wetlands, but they were kind of devastated by the pollutants in the bay. So the wetlands coming back, not only is that good and healthy for the environment, but it's a major protection for future storms because it absorbs the energy. So for all those reasons, we're very excited. It also provides some additional land for us for redevelopment consideration. The adoption, as Scott said, of the comprehensive plan is a major step that we were able to accomplish last year. We'll talk about that more later. Looking to encourage alternative transportation and retrofitting. We've retrofitted every city building, as you can imagine. Most buildings and their facilities were impacted by the storm, whether it was our water treatment plant or sewage treatment plant, City Hall, our fire stations. Everything had to be rebuilt and mostly, in most cases, raised up so that they're protected for the future. It wasn't just building back, it was building back so we're ready for any future events. So that has been a major accomplishment. Here, I just want to mention again some specific projects. Edwards Boulevard that I mentioned at the beginning, that was assisted with NYMTC's help, which not only was the elements that I mentioned before important, but it also is a major road, and that's why it was selected for the grant. We're excited we got the grant so we could do the project between the Long Island Railroad Station and the beach. People we didn't mention before, I don't think, but in the summer, besides people coming by car, they also come by train from Brooklyn and Manhattan. Before COVID, we were getting about 9,000 people on a summer weekend sunny day, 9,000 people coming to then, most of them walked down Edwards to the beach to get on through the boardwalk to get onto the beach. And we actually stopped traffic on our major arterial here, Park Avenue, to allow the people coming off each train to cross Park Avenue, because you can imagine, a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 people coming off a train on a Saturday morning. You just didn't want them to try to cross the street at the light, so we stopped the traffic, and that's the major accomplishment. We are certified pro-housing community with New York State because we're supportive of encouraging housing opportunities. The flood protection program I talked about with the bulkheading, Park Avenue, and let's move on to the next slide, please. So we used a firm called, I just have to mention them, SLR from upstate New York, who were great on our comprehensive plan. Because what they did for us, besides having traditional planning processes, you collect ideas, what people want to see, they do a lot of research, they interviewed a lot of people, coming back with proposals and then getting community support on that. It's a lot of outreach. This was during COVID, I must say, so it added extra challenges. But what they did was identify the key areas here: livable neighborhoods, thriving places, a robust year-round economy, access to mobility and connectivity, enhanced environment and climate resilience, sustainable growth and opportunities. These are important issues for Long Beach, and they captured them in not only 5 bullets, but if you look at our comprehensive plan, which of course is available on our website, the report, and I'm saying this to planners because we are so impressed, the report is written with not a lot of narrative. It's written in bullets and key issues, with summaries, with visuals. And I say that because we've only had positive reactions in the community to the plan, because it's very understandable and the major points are easily communicated, and people feel like they were heard, which is so important, that you want to capture the uniqueness of your community. And we really feel that our plan did. And it was a great success. It was done on a modest budget, I must say, but we got it done. We're very thrilled with it. And we were surprised and delighted to win the New York State, or I should say the New York, they're not state agency, but it's the New York Planning Federation Comprehensive Plan Award for this year. And we were thrilled to be cited that way by our peers in the planning field. I'm going to be talking about some of the achievements that we've been able to accomplish in the plan in the housing area. We've already talked about protection of our community. We've talked about transportation, the economics, and the value importance of our neighborhoods. Like so many communities, we have very unique neighborhoods because of the diversity, as Scott went over, of the type of housing patterns we have here, everything from single family homes to high rises. And we have a lot of renters, much more so than most places on Long Island. Therefore, we respect and appreciate the community character of our neighborhoods. And besides the plan, one of the next things on our agenda is to do a zoning code update. The code is over 35 years old. Obviously, since Sandy, we need to make some changes. And also, housing patterns have changed, development has changed, and people's desires for walkable communities, for example, have changed. So we need to reflect that in the zoning code. And New York State has a local waterfront revitalization program plan. We have one in draft form, and we hope to accomplish the completion of that, working with the state in the next couple of years. That's a major, because being a waterfront community surrounded by water, it's very important that we have policies in place that protect the waterfront from the water side, from the ground side, from the land side, as well as give direction to developers, direction and help and support for residents and businesses. We can go on to the next slide. So the Bayfront, as you might have gotten the impression, the Bayfront has changed over time. It's still zoned industrial because of its past, like so many communities on Long Island that have used their waterfront for industrial purposes. Things were barged in and out. There are a lot of all our major utilities are there. Our major city sectors are there that support the city in infrastructure and utilities. And we have some city-owned property, some private property, and we want to see the best uses for the area with the support and involvement of the community to plan it well, probably for some mixed uses. It's a wonderful opportunity, especially as the bay gets cleaned up, to think ahead, to have more access to the water, fishing, boating, etc., and more access for our residents to use and avail themselves of the water. We'd like to see some kind of esplanade there and some possible uses to serve people that are visiting our community as well. So it would balance out what we have on the ocean with things on the bayfront. New York Forward, that's a state program that provides funding to revitalize downtowns. And we're so thrilled that we were selected through the Department of State and the Department of Economic ESD to be a New York Forward program. And we had planning last year with the community and a planning committee working with the state and their consultants. So we have priority projects and we look forward soon to start them. Two of the major public projects are to do another block of Park Avenue that we're doing in phases, because Park Avenue is 6 lanes, 3 lanes in each direction with the median and on-street parking. So it's a challenge to plan for the future and make it more attractive for our business community, for residents to shop, for visitors, for the businesses themselves and their employees. So with all that in the mix, we have a template, and we're grateful for the funds to redo another street, another block. And the other part of the funds will go for the very important park called Kennedy Plaza in front of City Hall, which is used for many, many uses by the residents and businesses and for events. And we get to redevelop it. So exciting. Downtown Park Avenue redevelopment really is connected to what I was talking about. We've also done projects, transit-oriented development projects around the train station, the multimodal center that previous speakers talked about. So we wanted to focus there as well. And we have some other funds for that purpose. The parking study is funding from Empire State Development. We're grateful for that funds, and we should start that soon. We're in the RFP stage, and that will allow us to look at our 3 downtowns and how to do better with the parking. We're not going to obviously be able to provide a total solution by providing a lot of new parking, but maybe some new parking significantly, maybe perhaps in the West End, as well as rethink how we approach parking issues, because we have the tension in Long Beach. It's not just a traditional downtown where you have commercial surrounded by residential, right? In Long Beach, we have that, but then we have the ocean and maybe also attractions in the future to the bay. So people come here for mixed reasons, and we have all these high-rise apartment buildings on the oceanfront, some of which do not have a lot of parking. They were built years ago, so the parking may not be adequate for today's needs. So all these conflicts create people driving around looking for parking, which is not good for the environment, not good for people who are looking for parking. So how can we make this better for both the West End and the downtown to make it more efficient for people to find the parking they need, whether they're going shopping, whether they're going to the beach and shopping, we hope they do, or the residents coming home from a trip. Traffic study was mentioned. That's funds through the US DOT, Safe Streets for All funding, do a planning study, because we have challenges with our traffic, as you can imagine, especially with people driving through the community as well as coming to the community as a destination. I mentioned our zoning code update, and the West End we're focusing on as well with the grant we have now. We're looking for some additional funds to not only look at the parking issues there, but the whole West End, which has a narrow commercial street, very busy because it's an attraction for people to come to the restaurants and other establishments. It has about 90 different retail businesses on a narrow block, but how to convene that with the parking and attraction issues for the beach. So it's a complex issue there. Next slide. Regional lessons. So this is our last slide. As you can see, I hope you can see, transportation is a vital component of what we do here, currently, in the past, and certainly for the future. And how we can work together, and we do work together as a team. I must say, city employees are a terrific group, and we have great leadership from our city manager and our city council to make sure that we use every component and look to the future, like electric bikes and micromobility. How can we work that into what we need and create more safer streets for all, safe and more access for people with transportation to get to where they need to go? Everything that we do, there's a whole, I call it a layer. Since 2013, I would say that resiliency is an additional layer to everything we do in our thought process, in our achieving our goals, into looking for funds, into development issues. We look at that because we need to. It's very, very important for the city for now and the future. Grants, as I said, we do a lot of work to achieve the awarding of grants for the city and to use the money wisely based upon the priorities in our capital program. We take that very seriously. We work on that. We have great people working on the capital plan. And grants help us to achieve these goals. And we have a lot of goals left. And since this is a regional group, I want to thank NYMTC again, all the regional agencies, because as planners and those interested in planning, Long Beach has obvious borders. But we can't stop at those borders. We have to, for example, look at our whole barrier island of Long Beach. We look to the larger region, to Nassau County and state issues, because we have to be alert and engaged in what's going on. The dynamics between Long Island and New York City are very important as well, through transportation, decisions on business, decisions on where they're going to locate, decisions on where people want to live. We are a suburban community. Our train station is the 6th busiest in Nassau and Suffolk counties, and even more people go to other stations to get to where they need to go. Obviously, mostly, I would think, to the west, to New York City. But we have a lot of people that work from home. We have a lot of people that drive to their destinations for employment purposes. So it's a busy place with a very much focused on water. And I have to mention at the end, the surfing community and other water-related uses at our ocean. We're considered, and I hate to brag, but I will, that we're considered having one of the best beaches in the United States, and certainly the most important surfing community in the New York area. Now, the Rockaways may want to challenge that, and that's fine, but we certainly do focus and have a great community here for water-related uses. And with that, thank you so much for your time of joining us, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Patty. I think you definitely have the right to brag. There's a lot going on in Long Beach that sounds really exciting, and I have to say it's been too long since I've been there. I'm thinking I need to come by and check things out. Certainly post Sandy, because that's the last time I was there was pre-Sandy. So
Adam,
I think
please, this is an invitation from all of us. Please come out, and everyone else, come and enjoy Long Beach.
Want to do that. Want to do that. Thank you. Thank you. So I think we already have a few questions in the chat. I think maybe we want to go through those.
Hi, my name's Stephanie. I'm helping with the chat here. The first question we received is, how have you approached road raising and flood wall height on the bay side?
Road raising. That's an interesting point. I know places like, I think, Lindenhurst and Freeport have historically raised their roads. We tend to raise the buildings more than the roads themselves. And what we do, as I said before, is provide flood mitigation. After Sandy, we redid a road called Neptune. That was the first road that we did, which has an elementary school on it and a synagogue. So it was an important road for a lot of people, and it flooded all the time. So by putting boxes which retain the water, took it quickly off the road, retain the water, and then slowly it leaked out. That really helped a lot. And of course, you have to remember that Long Beach has some unique characteristics. We're built on sand, where most of Long Island, the region, is built on more of a soil composition. So water is different here. But we also have the problem that with the high water table, that during storms, we have water coming out of the soil and bubbling up too. Now, when you said the barriers, I'm sorry, what word did you use about the bayfront?
So Patty,
The question was about road raising and flood wall height on the bay side.
Flood wall. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I could add to this, Patty, just a little bit. On the bay side, as well as on the ocean side, we've changed our code to make the bulkheads have to be AFF, the freeboard height +3. So everything has been raised up significantly on all city property. And anytime a permit is put in for a new bulkhead for any residential property, it must be now put up to the AFF +3. We've also put in, as far as roads, we are not doing as much as we can do with the roads because the houses are built. It becomes a little bit of a problem because what we don't want to do is divert the water off the roads onto people's properties. But what we are doing is putting in pumping systems as well. We have one on the west end. We're doing one right now on our North Park area that will be the next one done that will help to try to mitigate some of the flooding that does make it by or over the walls by pumping out at a high rate out into the bay.
Thank you. This may have answered the next question for bulkheads. What level of protection are you designing to?
AFF +3.
Great. And then how is Long Beach planning for growing sunny day high tide flooding with sea level rise?
Good question. That's probably similar. I mean, it's an interesting question. What we're having problems with now, believe it or not, it's not just on storm events. We're having regular high tide events that are leading to significant flooding in the city. We've actually noticed just recently, in the last couple of weeks, we've had some significant flooding events. We do expect that, the raising of the bulkheads will help that. We put in tide flex valves at all of our water outlets into the bay and the ocean. That helps to prevent water coming back up through our storm drain system coming into our streets. But this is a concern that we have, and we're going to have to continue to move in that direction to prevent that from happening in the future.
Thank you. Just a heads up, there are two links in the chat.
On that question, that question too, I forgot to mention, we're working right now on the creation of a planning board. We don't have one in Long Beach, and it's a very exciting time. And some of the discussions about that are requirements, and we're looking at requirements as new houses are built or redeveloped to retain water on site, which, if you're familiar with the issue, that there are county, in our case, there are Nassau County standards, we have city standards of how much water you can retain on your property, and we need to not only look at that, but look at construction, because we want to do everything possible to mitigate water going from a particular private property, could be commercial as well, a house, a business, onto the street, as Dan was saying, and then it goes from the street into the main road, and it creates more flooding conditions. So we need to do everything possible to mitigate that.
Yeah, very, very good point. We're also looking at more pervious materials to be used in construction, more sidewalks that have permeability, more brickwork rather than concrete, things like that to help try to get more absorption to the soil than what we're currently doing right now.
That is exactly what the next question's about. Are you utilizing gray flood resiliency infrastructure such as bioswales, permeable pavings, pavers, and retrofitting park or school athletics courts to serve as flood basins during cloudburst events?
So permeable paving, yes. We are looking at grants right now to do more what do they call the flood? How do you help me with this one? The small retention basins, at street corners, et cetera. But we're still looking at what the optimum design is for the area, because you got to remember, the more you put in, we also have, since we are a barrier island, you don't want to make it an access point for water either. So we have to really
and one thing just to mention, because obviously something like permeable pavement isn't, that's that's a no-brainer. It's perfect, it would be great, but it adds a cost. We've looked into that. Whether you're doing asphalt or concrete, it adds a lot of cost. So we have to balance out the available funds and available grant funds or city funds in how far we can go. But that's certainly, as Dan said, a goal, and but it's a practical goal too. In terms of
and during a flood event or a high burst event, as you were mentioning, it only moves so much water through the soil so quickly. So it really doesn't, in those type of events, doesn't really serve the optimal purpose that you want it to.
And remember, as we said, that the water table is very high now. It goes through periodic changes right now, especially in Long Beach. So there's not really that much room for water to go. So we have to be creative.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
This is a multi-part question, so I will just start the first part. That Park Avenue through Long Beach is aptly named. More than half of it features 2 rows of angled parking in the median between the 6 lanes. And then the question is, with the New York Forward grant, did you say you were hoping to remove lanes?
No,
No.
New York Forward grant, our template right now. Dan, did you want to answer this one?
No, I was just saying no, definitely. If anything, we have to put in more parking.
The template right now for Park Avenue is to keep the present configuration. 10 years ago, we had an engineers do an estimate, Dan, I don't know if we ever talked about this, and we went to we asked for a federal grant at the time, and I think it was like $40 million, they thought, to redo all of the downtown commercial area of Park Avenue. That would mean redo the road, redo the medians. It's really expensive. And I don't know if anyone knows of that kind of size grant, we'd be happy to hear about it. But with the kind of grants we can get, which are very generous, we're keeping the existing pattern, and we're doing one block at a time, making it safer with better striping and better signage. And as we find grants, we'll do more. But we're not addressing that issue right now.
Thank you. And more follow-up questions from that. So you did say you would add parking to the median spaces. Is there also consideration of using that wide center median space for something more walkable or cyclable?
Yes, we have not looked at that. I mean, Patty, I don't know if we've had in our designs, but there have been very numerous questions about things that could be done. We had a legislator that was thinking about something like a high line that would run all the way up all the way to Lido. There's been some interesting comments. We have not really explored it too much in depth. I think right now we're looking at park, I think on the outside lanes to have a bike lane, but I think the better location for a bike lane is Broadway along the water. I mean, I think people would rather bike along, something where they could, have a view as well. The other area is along the bay side, where we'd like to have a more walkable type community, and we will have some development opportunity along the bay side as we do more and more work and we free up the space where the sewage treatment plant is. So it's really a better opportunity along the two outer edges of the community, less so in the center. Center really becomes a main thoroughfare, and you want to make it safe as well when you have the biking opportunities.
Thank you. And the last question, given Long Beach's resilience on grant funding, are you concerned about the federal funding picture in the next few years?
Always. Grant funding is the heart of any small community. It really helps us do the things that we would really like to do, but cannot really, expect out of our residents to really fund. It's the nice to haves. It's the things, the bigger vision, things that you really want to get done through the grants. Any change of administration puts that up in question. I think, the question is whether, the savings that come from efficiencies get pushed on to the states, or if the savings reduce the debt. I mean, either way, it could be a benefit to the country, but what's the benefit to, how is it going to be implemented? We're still unsure. So we have to wait and see how that really plays out.
Well, thank you so much. And that is all for our questions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Big thanks to Patty and Dan and Michael and Scott. This has been a great presentation. I actually jotted down a handful of questions myself, but I'll save them for when I and other folks from NYMTC come out to Long Beach, so we can, maybe take a tour and have a little bit more that we could talk about. So thank you again to all of our attendees. Thank you again to the team from Long Beach, and we look forward to seeing everybody back at our next Brown Bag on December 4th from New York City DOT. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
And you're welcome anytime, Adam. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.